Welcome, Dolphins fans. It is free agency season. The Dolphins have made their first moves during the first wave, and backup quarterback Zach Wilson is your headliner. Are you happy with what you've seen so far? Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I am your host, Chris Perkins, your South Florida Sun Sentinel, Miami Dolphins columnist. That is David Furones, your South Florida Sun Sentinel, Miami Dolphins writer. Furones, what have you thought about the first week? Are you excited? The first few days, are you excited of the start here?
Yeah, a little bit of what we expected. Not too much overspending. Dave Hyde wrote a great column on that topic. We'll talk about it on this show. So address the needs that we expected. They went and got a high caliber guard, got their backup quarterback, addressed the safety position. Still some other needs that need to be addressed, but there's still plenty of time this offseason.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with you. There's some nitpicking here and there, but we'll get into that. We want to welcome our viewers as always. We invite you to leave your comments, thoughts, tidbits on our chat line, the best place to get intelligent Dolphins talk. We also remind you that you can catch the podcast of this show on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And we would like to tell you that you can sign up for our weekly newsletter, The Fins Flash, by scanning the QR code that is being shown on your screen. So, Zach Wilson, we're going to talk about this. It's kind of a surprise signing. We're going to get your thoughts on it. Me and Furones will give you our thoughts on it. Also, the Dolphins, as Furones said, they've been a little bit frugal this offseason. Dave Hyde did write an excellent column on that. We're going to talk about the Dolphins' frugality. To me, it kind of reminds of last year, and I thought they were pretty decent last year with what they got in free agency. Our Furones bonus, we can't do a show without the Furones bonus. Furones is going to tell us what's been the Dolphins' best move in free agency so far, and then we will wrap it up talking about what we would like to see the Dolphins do the rest of this free agency period. As we always say around here, there's an ocean of possibilities. Let's dive in. All right, Furones. I like that head bob to that, too.
I did it last time, too. Maybe you didn't notice.
No, I didn't know. I didn't notice. All right, I'll be looking now.
It's almost like our top celebration, right? Like everyone goes and does the
That's right.
Top, let's dive in.
That's right. Exactly. All right, so Furones, Zach Wilson. I'm not a big fan of this signing, and here's why. He's a project, and he's a reclamation project, I should say. And the number 2 pick of the 2021 draft out of BYU to the New York Jets. He did not do well with the Jets. 23 touchdowns, 25 interceptions. Granted, the Jets, that's not a fair evaluation. That team was kind of in the toilet at that time. He didn't really get a fair shake. But here's my thing is that you need somebody who, when they come in, guys aren't going to look around at each other in the huddle and go, oh, my God, is this dude going to be able to get it done? I kind of think that was the feeling with Skylar Thompson last year. And I would like to see more of all right, this guy can get it done. The feeling you might get from, and I'm just throwing out some names here, from a Marcus Mariota, from a Joe Flacco, from a Tyrod Taylor, who I know is under contract, from an Andy Dalton, from somebody who has won games in this league. Now, I will say that I don't think this is the go-for-it year for the Dolphins. So Mike McDaniel does have a year to groom Zach Wilson, get him in the system. If he's going to make a mistake, Zach Wilson, let him make it in 2025, not in 2026, when I think you really need to make your final Super Bowl run. So I get that, but I would have gone elsewhere. I'm not a big fan. I'll wait and see, but I'm not a big fan of this signing.
Since the offseason started, I've been on the Jimmy Garoppolo train. I think I've mentioned on this program every time when I'm on with Big O. I just felt Jimmy G was the best combination of fit in the offense, having already been in the same system and under Mike McDaniel when he was OC in San Francisco, and also being a dependable veteran with experience and high leverage situations for those moments when Tua is unavailable on a team that must win this season. I don't know. You're talking about, hey, next year is one. Hey, if the Dolphins don't win this year, I think people are gone. So
Yeah.
I think, the Dolphins must win this season. And that wasn't just me talking, being on board with Jimmy G. I think there was some serious hubbub talks between the two, both this and last offseason. Ultimately, Garoppolo, though, went back to the Rams. Hey, Sean McVay working there under him and being behind Stafford. So good situation for him. Zach Wilson was not as high on my radar among free agent quarterbacks as Jimmy G, as Marcus Mariota, who you mentioned. Although I was on him, but even Joe Flacco. I would have liked Flacco for the veteran experience and capability of handling the personalities in the offense that you talk about, which, okay, when we say that, we're really talking about personality of Tyreek in this offense, being able to handle him. As far as Zach Wilson goes, he's got some tools in terms of his mobility, his arm talent. He's been a little raw and erratic, so he needed some seasoning. He was a little bit better toward the end of his time with the Jets. Didn't have to play last season with Denver, so didn't get to really see how much he did improve. But for the reason of still being a developmental sort of experiment instead of a veteran proven backup, I would have liked the more sure thing of others on a team where the backup quarterback is so important. But I do appreciate that for those reasons, Zach Wilson has more upside than the others, and maybe Mike McDaniel can be that QB whisperer to him that he has been for Tua in his career since he joined at the helm of Miami.
See, and this is what bothers me, Furones, is that this is another quarterback whisperer project. And you have that with Ryan Tannehill and Joe Philbin, and Ryan Tannehill and Adam Gase. And it's kind of worked with McDaniel and Tua. It didn't work with McDaniel and Skyler. I don't really believe in this quarterback whisperer thing. And I think that McDaniel thinks that between my coaching and our system, we can lift Zach Wilson. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but I'm not really a believer in that. Look, he's worked a small miracle with Tua, right? That Tua, because of what he went through under Brian Flores, he was kind of a broken quarterback. McDaniel brought him back. I give Mike McDaniel 100% credit for that. Great job. But there's kind of been a ceiling on Tua, right? Let's not act like Tua is Patrick Mahomes. The guy hasn't won a playoff game, and injuries are a problem, which isn't McDaniel's fault at all. But when we see McDaniel's work with the backup quarterbacks, Skyler and Teddy Bridgewater and Tim Boyle and Snoop Huntley, I'm very unimpressed. And so that's why I would like to see a more sure thing, somebody who is further down the line. And look, I know that you've got, a lot of people to work with Zach Wilson, right? Between McDaniel, offensive coordinator Frank Smith, quarterbacks coach Darrell Bevel, senior pass game coordinator Bobby Slowick. That's a lot of help. But, man, I would have liked to have seen somebody further down the line.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's why ultimately, hey, like Jimmy Garoppolo was my guy that I wanted for the combination of exactly that, and then also the scheme fit, which Zach Wilson does possess some of that because let's also mention he has experience in a similar iteration of the Dolphins offense under former Jets offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur. So a lot of concepts that won't be new to him, maybe some of the terminology, but if you're Mike McDaniel, because I think we got to talk about how he's got to run what version of the offense is Mike McDaniel going to run. If you're him, you have to incorporate some different things for Zach Wilson's skill set than the Tua-specific sort of base offense that Miami runs. So we saw him kind of be a little stubborn at first when he had Tyler Huntley in last year until we finally saw signs of an adjusted offense when Snoop started that game in Cleveland, that one of your favorite words of mine, penultimate game of the season in Week 17. So I just hope Mike gets ahead of that this season with a set plan for some minor tweaks that benefit Wilson, but it'll help having him from now as opposed to being a mid-season signing.
Freaking penultimate. You had to get that word in there, didn't you? Penultimate.
Week
Right.
17 of 18.
Oh yeah, it's been awesome. Before we go on, let's welcome some of our viewers here. Raphael Courtwright, Michael P, Carl Beckert. Saw you on Twitter, Carl. Everybody is seeing me on Twitter, fortunately or unfortunately. Raphael Courtwright, I said you. JD the Great One, Fitzgerald Grass, CTFDU, Derek. Ronald Lewis Dahan, right? Richard Kelly, Shake Money. Who else we got in here? What's going on, people? Glad to see all of you. Let's see here. Michael P says we need to sign a real QB. Raphael Courtwright. Let's see here. Hello, gentlemen. More injury more injury-prone problems. GM hasn't learned from mistakes drafting and signing players to IR. OBJ, McMorris, wide receiver Washington, etc. Zach is better than Skyler. That's a lot. Let me just break it down right here.
That was quite a run-on sentence.
It was, and bad reading. Bad reading by me, too. It's the public education system at work on my part. Yeah.
Our editor would go nuts.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's talk about let's talk about Chris Greer. GM hasn't learned from his mistakes drafting and signing players to the IR. Zach Wilson is not one of those, but Zach Wilson could be the backup quarterback thing, right? And you haven't learned from your mistakes of last year when you needed to get a veteran backup quarterback and you didn't. You did the Mike White, Skylar Thompson training camp showdown, this big battle, and it turns out that neither of them were equipped to be the backup quarterback. Do you trust the judgment of Chris Greer when it comes to selecting backup quarterbacks?
Okay, yeah. Well, first the comment of signing guys to IR, like if they go straight into injured reserve.
Yeah, well,
they're never on the active roster. They're just.
Yeah, I know. I think what was meant there was signing injured players, which we did on the offensive line, but we're talking Zach Wilson right now. Yeah. All right.
I know. Just the image that came in my head as I
signing
heard you read that. Was like, all right, we have signed so-and-so, and we are immediately placing them on injured reserve.
Yeah, they kind of did with OBJ last year, actually, like he says. But
well, that's PUP. That's PUP.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Just to be clear. Sorry, what was the question originally?
So, as Greer, do you trust Greer's? He said Greer hasn't learned from his mistakes. Do you trust Greer's judgment on the backup quarterback selection?
Yeah, well, it's hard to do so right now.
Yeah.
Now, of course, like you had a year where it was Ryan Fitzpatrick, and you loved the judgment there and what he was, and then obviously how he was able to lift the offense. And this is an earlier time, but still Chris Greer's tenure as GM and as the lead franchise roster decision maker, because this is then after Mike Tannenbaum, of course. So, but yeah, ever since then, it's been tough to see how you go from Jacoby Brissett that 1 year where it was the last one of Brian Flores and Tua is a starter and Brissett struggled. Then it was Teddy Bridgewater and that was a struggle, which you did sign to a high-priced backup quarterback deal, and it didn't work out, which was what Teddy B commanded at the time as a former proven starter, sort of like on the verge of starter backup, right there on that threshold, just on that boundary. And then Skylar Thompson, of course, that goes awry when he was a third string quarterback. Mike White, you never had to see him that first year or when he was the backup, but then he loses the competition to Skylar the next year. So yes, it has been a rough going as far as backup quarterback evaluation, but I know Greer and McDaniel are very collaborative, so obviously this has Mike McDaniel's fingerprints all over it. And I do want to hear from Mike at the end of this month at owners' meetings when he makes his first public comments on the free agency class, and to actually hear what he has to say about the move. But yeah, definitely has his fingerprints all over him as he sees Wilson as a guy that he can fix. And again, he only has to be a backup. All right, it's not like you're trying to do another Tua reclamation project of transforming him into a starter. He just has to be your backup. but the backup quarterback position is very important on this Miami Dolphins roster.
Yep. What's up to Sean Heller? What's up to Kevin W. Williams? I had a Gardner Minshew comment in here, I think from Carl. Yeah, I would have rather had Gardner Minshew instead of Wilson.
He's another one, yeah.
Yeah. I will say this, that the field of backup quarterback options was not great. But again, I just would have rather have seen somebody who has already had success, and I guess Minshew kind of has had some success. See, I wouldn't have liked Trey Lance either. I'm not right now. I'm not a big fan of this second time around reclamation project. I know Baker Mayfield is kind of in that. Sam Darnold definitely in that. I just don't want that for the backup for the Dolphins. And by the way, let me say this also: Zach Wilson. If history repeats, he needs to be ready early, right? Because in 2022, Tua gets injured in Week 4 at Cincinnati, kind of in Week 3 that Bills game, but really Week 4 at Cincinnati, and then last year he gets hurt Week 2 against Buffalo. So let's hope that Zach Wilson is ready early. I mean, Tua's been hurt early and late because he had the second concussion in 2022 and the hip in 2024. So let's hope that Zach Wilson is up for the challenge. I hope that he is. Furones, let's move on to this segment. The Dolphins are trying to be frugal and smart in the offseason like last year. This gets into the Dave Hyde column and kind of, who are these guys? Like, this isn't the free spending, freewheeling McDaniel and Greer that we saw the previous 2 off seasons. They had to use some financial caution here, and really a big reason is because of those extensions that they gave out last year. They don't have as much money this year. However, I will say this. I do think that Chris Greer did a good job shopping last year. Jordan Brooks, Aaron Brewer, Jonnu Smith, Saran Neal. I'm probably leaving out a couple. And look, I know they didn't all work out. OBJ didn't work out. Marcus May didn't work out. But for the most part, and you didn't get a backup quarterback. Let's just focus on what they got and the price. He did a good job. Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel both. I'll give them both credit. They both did a good job. I think they could repeat that, and I'd be fine with that. I would be totally fine with that. To me, you need your top guys to do better. Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle. But if you get in this offseason, Calais Campbell, let's not forget him. If you get in this offseason what you got in last offseason, thumbs up to Chris Greer.
Yeah, the biggest spending was on James Daniels, and I think I said on the pre-free agency show, that's of the tier in spending of Aaron Brewer last year, and I said, hey, if you could get just another Aaron Brewer type contract that then comes in and plays at his level, and you have him at one of the guards, I would love that. So, let's look into some of these decisions when it comes to the money. First, at quarterback, as we just talked about, Zach Wilson, instead of coming up to meet the Mariota price, for example. So trying to save a little bit there. Now, we've talked about how we would have liked a more experienced guy. And, hey, even Jimmy Garoppolo, he took less money, actually. So, so my number one would have been available for less money. Wait a minute. But there's probably other reasons as far as just agreements with the franchise he was just with, talks with Sean McVay and the Rams, and after having probably a good year over there with that organization. So James Daniels, who, if healthy, could be up there in the class of the top guards this cycle in terms of his pay and his play. He's a bit more of a bargain since he's coming off the Achilles when you talk about that pay. But you didn't go chasing Will Fries, who what he got was an average annual value of $17.6 million, or even Aaron Banks, not Aaron Banks, but Aaron Banks, pronounced traditionally, who I was very high on because of his previous time in San Francisco, and how Mike McDaniel is part of the coaching staff which drafted him second round in 2021, his last year with the 49ers. I had no idea he was going to get $19.2 million in average annual value, though. So, I was high on him, but I thought he was going to be in the next tier of contracts. Even Patrick McCarry, who got 12.5 average You didn't go up there, and even Kevin Zeitler. I'm not sure of pronunciation there. He got a little bit more than Daniels, but yeah, you stuck to your budget there. At safety, also bargain hunting with Ifatu Melifonwu, which I just nailed. Did I?
Nice.
Yeah. And let's see if I get this one. Ashton Davis. All right.
There you go. That's a tricky one.
Which, with that combination, you could presumably get better safety play than the Holland Poyer combination of last year at a much lower price than what Javon Holland and Jordan Poyer gave you last year. I mean, is this just not fresh in your mind? The missed tackles, the bad angles, and lack of playmaking.
No, that's fresh in my mind. I'm very wait and see. I think you've got to get a safety in the first or second round. I don't trust either of these two guys. Ashton Davis is probably more special teams. You know, but they did do a good job. Go on. I didn't mean to interrupt with that sour face I made, but I'm skeptical on the safeties. But yeah,
there's the possibility that you might end up getting better safety play because the standard wasn't that high last year. You might at a much lower price than what you had to pay to bring back Javon Holland, and if you're not going up there for the $15 million per year for Javon, you also don't bite on the similar price tag of Trayvon Moehrig or Cameron Bynum or Talanoa Hufanga. So now maybe Jeremy Chin at 2 years, $16 million. That was kind of one that I said, "Ooh, I might have taken that one. I would have liked to do that, but." Hey, you don't do that. Now you can spend more money elsewhere. Also, Nick Westbrook, Akine, then you get possibly a good free agent addition at a low price. So what they did at linebacker, Tyrell Dodson, bring him back at 4.5, and then they just brought in KJ Britt this morning. So I don't think he's getting a lot of money. We haven't seen the financial details there, but still, yeah, just good, solid, frugal spending for guys who could have some upside for you.
Yeah, and you know, let's go out here to what some of the people are saying. Raphael Courtright says Josh Dobbs, Mac Jones, etc. Yeah, that's you know they were out there too.
Mac with Tua, Mac backing up Tua again, just like Alabama.
Yep, that would have been very interesting, right?
It would have been good for our headline writing.
That's right. Let's see. Comrade says, afternoon, guys. This move to a Thursday is killing me. Tuesday was my day off. Well, you know, it's the off season, so we got to go with what we got.
Free agency, baby.
Exactly. Matt Newton says Mike McDaniel's system is too complicated for any backup QB. So far, only Tua, maybe Bridgewater, has succeeded in this QB-friendly system in Miami. I read that because I think that's a very good point. I did talk to quarterbacks last year, and you kind of referenced this. You know, they said that it's very tough to come into this system mid-season. I talked to C.J. Beathard, I talked to Skylar Thompson, I talked to Snoop, and I talked to Tim Boyle. But they also all said it's a big advantage to have been in a Shanahan system. And you mentioned that with LaFleur and the Jets and Wilson. I do put a lot of credit and credibility into that because this came from the players. And when I saw this message here in our chat and remembered, you know, what you said, and I referenced this in one of my columns too. So I give them, you know, maybe this is one thing that they're thinking here, and I'm sure it's one thing that they're thinking with Zach Wilson, that he's got a leg up because he's been in this system. Again, just those backup quarterbacks told me that's a big advantage. And I was actually talking to them about the advantage of being in the Shanahan system as you go out into free agency. And because, you know, 7 or 8 teams might run some kind of iteration of it. And they said, yeah, it's very helpful. So anyway, I just bring that up with Zach Wilson.
But this is also why Jimmy Garoppolo was my number one choice, because then you could slide right in, and you don't have to think about the offense.
Yes, and so what's up between Garoppolo and McDaniel? They've been together. Is this kind of like a Butch Berry Dalton Risner thing, but on a much higher level of importance? Butch Berry, the offensive line coach, and Dalton Risner, the guard who has bounced around. But the McDaniel Jimmy G, why wouldn't they get together?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, maybe there. I've heard, and I don't know how valid it is. Maybe some rumors that they weren't that great together in San Francisco. But I also believe that there has been some real talk between those sides, both last offseason and this offseason. Just rumblings. I mean, yeah, I think there still was some interest going both ways.
Trinity Soundworks, what's going on? Let's see here. Let's see. Richard Kelly, just rooting for my team. I don't care who they put on the field. Let's see. If he says if Woodley can make it to the Super Bowl, there is always a chance. Of course, there was the best coach ever in the NFL we had back then. Yeah, that's true. Scott Pro, what's going on? Juan Cantu says, GM guys, Wilson has to be ready. Yes or yes. Tua has been injured 4 of the 5 seasons. Yeah, that's going back to our GM. Do you trust Chris Greer? Yeah, Zach does have to be ready very quickly. Let me ask you this, Furones. We know how training camp is structured nowadays, that Tua is not going to get any work except in joint practices, so Zach Wilson gets all the day-to-day snaps. How much do you think they can speed up his learning curve among, I guess they report, like April 15th or sometime soon for the off-season program, between OTAs, mini camp, and training camp? Is it possible to get this guy up to speed so that if he has to come in week 3 or 4 in a distressed situation, meaning Tua got hurt in the second or third quarter, bam, Zach, grab your helmet, you're in. Can they coach him up to that level that quickly?
Well, shoot, I would give, as soon as he's in the building and officially putting pen to paper, I would get him that playbook immediately. I would think. I'm not in there to see how that part of it actually goes, but I would imagine get him that playbook the first day. He's there. Which nowadays, I guess we say playbook, like back in the day when you had a physical book
right.
of plays with different pages. But now the file of plays,
the iPad or whatever.
That you look at on the Microsoft Surface. Remember, it's Microsoft.
Right. Oh, that's right. You're right. You're right.
Not iPad.
You're right.
So yeah, now of course you want to make sure he's signed there too, signed, sealed, and delivered. So you don't give him the playbook and then he pulls a fast one and goes to another team. So I mean, whenever he's in the building to do that, make sure you get him all those things and get him up to speed so that then he goes into OTAs and minicamp as prepared as possible. Also with that background of already being in a similar scheme.
All right, so let's bring it back to the frugal spending and Chris Greer and all of that, just to kind of put a bow on this segment. Look, they didn't spend a lot last year. I think Jordan Brooks was the big contract at $9 million a year, $8 million a year, 3 years. So very similar, very similar to what Daniels is getting. So I do think that they're on a good track right now as far as free agency, filling some of the holes. I don't think you have an answer at either safety position right now. You do have an answer at one of the guard positions. You do have an answer at inside linebacker. At defensive tackle, you can bring Deshaun Hand and Benito Jones back. It's not an upgrade, but they're NFL caliber players. They can hold it down. You do have Zach Sealer right there beside him, so that helps out a lot. You do still need a cornerback, but overall, it hasn't been anything splashy or exciting or dramatic. But I'm probably going to give Chris Greer right now B-. I think he's done a good job at a good price with some reasonable talent.
Yeah. I think they addressed what you knew they needed to. They needed to get at least one starting caliber guard in free agency. check. They got that with James Daniels. They needed to address the safety position because you had no one. You had no one coming back, except for Patrick McMorris, of course. So, yeah, let me not say no one.
And I'm Elijah Campbell.
Yeah, you had to re-sign. But before, he was a free agent. He was a free agent. So before that, yes, Patrick McMorris, as a 6th-round rookie the year before, was your one guy you had coming back. So, I think you with what they've done at safety, they have some competition for a spot, and then maybe you can add to it in the draft if you get one of those higher ranked safeties. If it's Malachi Starks out of Georgia, who just had a great pro day yesterday, which the Dolphins were there for, by the way. Take a little break from all the free agency men while still striking some deals. Get out there and evaluate at UGA. Or Nick Emanwari from South Carolina, who had a tremendous combine. He's a freak of an athlete. So not one of those guys that you need the top pick to use. Maybe you could trade up from the 2nd round if one of them starts to slip a little bit. But yeah, they still have 11 picks now in this draft. We always thought it was 10, but still have a lot of ways to attack this. And then there's guys that are still available who were their own, like a Deshaun Hand. I would love to see Deshaun Hand come back. Calais Campbell is the number 1 guy you really want back, but we saw he took it until June last year to make his decision. So, he's got to decide. He's going to be 39 next season, so he's got a lot on his plate to decide on. So, and including whether his chances are better, which they probably are, if he goes to the Baltimore Ravens, let's say, just to throw one out there, a team that he has a good relationship with as well. So, hopefully Anthony Weaver can pull the strings to bring him back. Selfish reasons as well, because we would love to have Calais Campbell in that line for our media sessions.
Yeah, Calais was great for us. Forget about the culture. He helped out the journalists. That's what Calais was, an absolute gem for us.
I mean, sometimes I hear coaches say the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. And you know what? Calais Campbell, how great he was in the media setting with us, and chatting in the locker room, that holds true because he has that same approach of just going about everything, whether it's in the locker room as a leader on the team, with the way he goes about his workouts, with the way he goes about his play on the field and preparing himself. To be fully healthy for a season and contribute the way he did at 38 says a lot about that guy. And he does all things to be great because he's also great with the media. It's something that does not need to be that high on the priority list for a lot of these athletes, and he was fantastic with us.
Yeah, a grown-ass man. That's what I can say about Calais. So, all right, so here we go, baby. We are getting to one of the top 4 segments on this 4-segment show. It is the Furones bonus.
Oh, the Furones bonus.
There we go, baby. We love it. We love it. All right, this week we are asking David Furones what's been the Dolphins' best free agent move. We have talked about Zach Wilson there at cornerback. We've talked about James Daniels at guard. They filled the linebacker holes. Well, they've addressed the safety position. They've even brought back a few of their own guys. Matt Dickerson, you mentioned Elijah Campbell, Terrell Dodson. They've been frugal with all of these moves. Furones, what move do you like as the best that they made and why?
Okay, so I won't go James Daniels because that's the easy one, simply because it's the guard and they invested in the offensive line. Congratulations, but we knew they needed to do that. But kudos to the Dolphins for doing that. There's a couple different ways I can go with this one, and I'll mention both. First, now you seem to be a lot lower on this move than I am, but I low-key love the Ifeatu Melifonwu edition. And I hope I said it. I did say his name, right?
You did. Just say it with confidence and keep it moving, man. Keep it moving.
Melifonwu.
There you go.
I love it for this reason. He's versatile in the secondary. You talk about Weaver's defense using Jalen Ramsey as an ultimate chess piece. That famous quote he said his introductory press conference. Yep. Melifonwu was once a quarterback, made the transition to safety. He can play free safety. He can play in the box. He can be a nickel cornerback covering the slot, and he can go out and play on the boundary. So there's a lot you can do in tandem with Jalen Ramsey, and then even Cater Cole, who's still a restricted free agent. The Dolphins tendered him with the right of first refusal. So the ball will always be in their court if another team does offer Kader Kohou a contract for the Dolphins to match. So all these guys so versatile in the secondary. There's a lot that Anthony Weaver will be able to do in terms of mixing and matching, putting them in different spots. Of course, the one threat that there is with Melifonwu is his injury history, some ankle concerns that he's had. At training camp last year, after he had emerged as a starter late in 2023, he had one ankle injury that really lingered and kept him out for considerable time. And then I think he had a finger injury as well when he was designated for return in practice, put him back on IR, and then he had to return much later. But he was a starter both at the end of 2023 and then also end of 2024 on a Lions defense that really needed a boost. And I think if Anthony Weaver feels he can do something with him, then I really like that move. But the other one I really like is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. And I wonder if he can be the offensive addition of the caliber, dare I say, of the likes of Jonnu Smith last season to this offense. A 6'2", long-armed receiver who can be a possession guy to complement Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in the receiving core, be a red zone target. I love it. I love it.
That's the move that I like best. And here's why. A lot of the Dolphins' issues are situational, right? You need a big back to get the 3rd and 1 or the goal line or to pound it in the red zone. You need a big receiver that Tua can throw it to. I like that they've addressed that situation with Westbrook-Ikhine. You still need your running back, situation. You did address your guard situation. But here's the other thing about Ikhine is you don't need as much from him as you do from James Daniels. James Daniels, you need him to bust his butt every play, run or pass. Ikhine, situations. Be big. Go up and get this ball. The pressure's coming on Tua. You're the guy. He's going to dump it off to you. Goal line situation, red zone situation, short yardage situation. We need a big receiver situation. That's not going to be 2 out of 3 downs. That's once out of every 5 snaps, once out of every 7 snaps. Situational help. That's what the Dolphins need here. And I think Nick Westbrook-Ikhine has a good chance to fill that. They've tried this with other people. OBJ was going to be the slot receiver, but of a different, physical stature. Chase Claypool was going to be a big receiver. Jonnu Smith fills a different role as a receiver. I like the big body. You needed that situation filled. You tried to address it. You tried to get an answer. It might not work out, but I like the fact that they saw that and they addressed it. They're trying to fill a weakness. I like Westbrook-Ikhine.
Look at the season he's coming off of. A career-high 9 touchdown receptions.
Yes.
That tells you, plus on top of that, 32 catches for 497 yards. Those 2 figures are kind of in the same ballpark that he has been over his previous seasons in Tennessee. But those 9 touchdowns, it jumps out at you for a team that when they get down in the red zone seems to struggle, especially since the Dolphins don't run well in short yardage situations, which by the way, I still do want them to bring in another power back and maybe now I think we're going to see more Jalen Wright next year, especially since Raheem Mostert has been released. And then now it'll be Jalen Wright's time to be the one to complement Devon Achane in the backfield and really be that downhill runner. So I think we'll start to see him in the second year in this offense be more incorporated. But just that you also have the element that along with already having Jonnu Smith from last year, who you can throw the ball up into in the red zone, the end zone, then you have another guy in Westbrook-Ikhine. When sometimes we do see like Tyreek Hill come off the field when they get down there because you don't want him in as a blocker on run plays, and then limited space. That's not where you want Tyreek. You want him to be able to go up and or you want a guy who can go up and get a ball in those situations. So I think he provides that along with Malik Washington with another year of development as that slot receiver, shifty guy. Then that'd be great if they can get all these guys working in tandem in this receiving core.
Yep, David Foles says maybe he can actually catch a fade in the end zone. He's right. That's something that's missing from the Dolphins. Yeah, exactly. It's missing from the Dolphins offense. So I'm really excited about Westbrook Akine. I hope that he fills the hole that they've had there for a while. All right,
I mean, look,
Furones.
we've seen that play call go, over the years under Mike
Yep,
McDaniel go to Tyreek Hill, who's,
yep.
well, what's he officially listed at? 5'10", 11?
5'10", 5'10".
10, yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen it go to Braxton Berrios.
Yep.
we, we,
Yep.
we saw one time where it really didn't look good when it went to Cedric Wilson. Actually, the Hard Knocks cameras caught Mike McDaniel telling the team like that was just an awful play call on his part,
Right.
on that play.
Right.
Yeah, now, all right, let's keep that in the offense, but we'll run it to a good old NWI. I don't know if he uses that nickname, but but I feel like any guy with a hyphenated name, then their three initials is just kind of by default a nickname of theirs. So
just mention it on a Zoom call and see what his reaction is. We'll see. That's how we'll know. That's how we'll know.
First time I talk, hey, what's up, NWI?
Right.
Like no one has called me that ever in my life.
Right. Exactly. Oh, that would be good. I would like to see that. I would pay money to see that, actually. All right, Furones, let's migrate on to our final segment here. And this is the segment that asks us, what do the Dolphins need to do here in free agency? What else should they seek? And we've had a couple of things here on the text line. Jay Gill says, still need one more guard, right? I think you do. I mean, you definitely do. You don't have anything in-house. Let's see. Scott Pro says need a thumping linebacker. Richard Kelly says and safety. Now look, you guys know that I favor a power runner. And we're just talking free agency, so we're not going to get into if Ashton Jinsey is there at number 10, I'm trading up for him. We're going to talk Nick Chubb. I guess J.K. Dobbins, but I think Nick Chubb is really kind of what I'm thinking as far as somebody who can run with some authority and some physicality and some power and give you that edge and that attitude. But I'll say this also, if we're talking about top priority, it might be that cornerback opposite Jalen Ramsey. And remember this about that cornerback. Asante Samuel Jr. is out there, but I think he's out of your price range. Rasul Douglas is out there. He's 31. He might be a little closer to your price range. But here's what I'm thinking, Furones. You definitely have to get a guy who can play off of Jalen Ramsey, meaning he can move. Because they move Jalen Ramsey around. They have Jalen Ramsey shadow people. You remember Vic Fangio would always tell us, I can't move Jalen because the other guy can't move. Like the other guy has to stay there. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you talk about shopping for a cornerback. He's got to be versatile enough that if they want to use Jalen Ramsey as a chess piece, this guy can go from one side to the other. He's got to have that in his game. So maybe Rasul Douglas at the corner, maybe Chubb at the power running back. Anybody that really comes to mind for you, because they've addressed safety a little bit. They've addressed inside backer. I think you could get away in-house at D tackle. You've done one guard. Your shopping has been okay. What would you like to see them do, Furones?
Yeah, and let's also mention that they were prepared to dish out their highest price contract just on 1 year, just for 2025, to Joey Bosa, who would command more money in 2025, although it would be a 1 year deal, but he would command more money this season than your current highest priced free agent signing, which is James Daniels at a $8 million clip. I don't think it's come out yet how much his cap number will be this year specifically, but you were prepared to do that. So you can't throw out edge rusher just yet, although you do have some high quality talent there, but two of them are veterans in Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, who are coming off the major knee injuries. Chop Robinson, you got him going into his second year. You love that. You could still develop Mohamed Kamara, and you did bring back Quentin Bell. So Emmanuel Ogbah still a free agent there. So they might still spend there, but you talk about if at cornerback, which you still have a hole that hasn't been filled yet, if Asante Samuel Jr. really is out of your price range, then maybe that money that could have gone to Joey Bosa, maybe if you were willing to spend it, you could go and send it that way and bring Asante, who I covered when he was in high school at St. Thomas Aquinas. Bring him back to South Florida. He's a local kid. So that would be a pretty cool story. And Rasul Douglas, hey, I like that as well. They're not shy about bringing in former Buffalo Bills to
Right.
fight into what Buffalo's doing and why they're so successful. So that could help. I would hope it's not like another Jordan Poyer situation again, but I mean, I think he could provide some of the qualities that Poyer, the positives that Poyer did bring, which we saw a lot of the coaching staff really did admire and liked about what he brought to the locker room and what he brought to the secondary. But obviously aging as well, going into his 30s. So that would be a little bit of a difficulty there. So, yeah, those are the things. I would love Nick Chubb. I liked the possibility of A.J. Dillon as a big back. He's in the 240s and his obviously he was coming back from a serious neck injury, which Chubb also has had a lot of knee issues. But if you bring down the workload that he has to be utilized, then that'd be incredible. Just have him pound away, efficient in short yardage situations, and then at this stage in his career, Chubb doesn't have to be that bell cow to carry such a great workload. Especially, we just saw Devon Achane handle so many touches last year. Right. He'll be the focal point in the backfield. You can still use Jalen Wright, and maybe if it's a Chubb back there, that would be fantastic. Although I think also like Jamal Williams is still out there, so that could be a good big back to use it in the same way. But yeah, I would have liked A.J. Dillon, but now he went to Philly for more tush push, another tush push. Back there.
That's right. That was a good tweet by you. Yeah. Good tweet. Okay, let me read a few of these. Juan Cantu, should we still expect a big free agent signing by the Dolphins this offseason? Matt Newton, the Dolphins need interior D-line help. Jeff Cezeni, is O-line toughness a mentality or physical trait? I will try to combine all of these because we're talking about what the Dolphins still need. Is O-line toughness a mentality or a physical trait? I think it's a mentality. I don't know if James Daniels, I have no idea if he's a dog, if he's one of those, grinder type of guys. I have no idea, but I hope when we talk about what they still need, they do need that tough mentality. I hope James Daniels figures into that. They do still need interior D-line help. I do think that Deshaun Hand has a little bit of that dog in him. He really does. So you bring him back, and that helps. Again, we're talking about what the Dolphins still need under a big umbrella. Mark Heavy, you're late. You're cool. Ender Fireplace, YZ, what's up? And then to Juan Cantu.
You're late. No, that's not cool. We need to fix the in this chat. All right. It's already been a problem with the Dolphins in-house. Tardiness at the end of the season was a big deal. We can't have it on the Dolphins Deep Dive YouTube show that you voluntarily watched.
He was hanging out with Tyreek, I think. That's the excuse there. Well,
we appreciate you. No matter when you.
Hey, by the way, so you saw this latest video of Tyreek doing the backflip, and he's got the wrist wrap on his right hand, but he had the surgery on his left hand. Am I paying too much attention to Tyreek? Am I feeding into the gotcha troll, or what's going on there?
I have no idea, but I wonder if some of it has to do with the flip camera when it's the one facing you, as opposed to like no that is my right. Put up okay not but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was like that where the right looks like the left on one of the videos, but in everything else it's been the other way. So we got to see him in person. We got to see where.
That's a whole other adventure. Is talking to Tyreek. That's a whole other adventure.
We won't get a straight answer either. We know that.
Exactly. All right. So let's circle back here to the big free agent signing. Here's what I think. I could go for one of those big free agent signings. I wasn't really, Bosa, that would have been good. Asante Samuel, okay. Here's what I'm thinking, and here's why I would go for one of those guys and not Will Fries. If I get, Bosa, I combine him with those other edge rushers, Jordan Brooks, Jalen Ramsey. I'm onto something. I can kind of control the game with my front seven. I would have thought that about Jonathan Allen, who was at 20 million. He was out of their price range. But you get Jonathan Allen and Zach Sealer. Okay, now I've got some edge rushers, and I've got Jalen Ramsey. So I'm thinking that with Asante Samuel, okay, you get me Jalen Ramsey, Asante Samuel, Cater Kohu. I can kind of slack off on my safeties. I've got Jordan Brooks, Terrell Dodson, Zach Sealer, Chubb, Phillips, Chop. I can maybe control some things defensively. So when you talk about that big spending guy, Will Fries, I still need a lot of other things. I still need that power running back. I still need that backup quarterback. I still need that big targeted receiver. He's not going to, and I know, look, I'm not discounting what James Daniels is or what a big dollar guard could do. I just think that if you fit in some of these butt kicking defensive players, you can really be onto something special. And so that's why when I look at Asante Samuel, he costs a lot, but boy, he could fit in nice. Bosa costs a lot. He was a 1-year rental, but man, he could make you a force defensively. So when I think of what the Dolphins need, and is there going to get back to Juan Cantu's a big free agent, if this guy can make me a force defensively or offensively, yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, and then I see maybe you could spend less for the guy that the Buffalo Bills let go of in bringing in Joey Bosa, maybe Von Miller.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, maybe you can bring him in because they're clearly still looking to add to the pass rushing unit, which even though it looks on paper like, okay, you have enough there, we have learned in recent years you can never have enough because guys go down, and you need to have a strong pass rush. That changes your defense. Imagine Anthony Weaver's defense last year if he really truly had a strong pass rush that you could have had. I mean, already
look at the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, it'd be a defense that like up there, top 5, top 3, going from top 10. If you really had a serious, fierce pass rush with all these guys healthy and available. Which is what I would see if you had a Chop Robinson, a healthy Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, maybe not quite as good as they have been coming off their serious injuries, but still, something maybe like an 85-90% there if you can get up there with them, and then bring in even another guy, rotate them so there's not as much a taxing play on their bodies and ligaments and muscles, and then that would be a tremendous find. And yeah, cornerback. Let's also not discount the ability to develop Cam Smith and have him be that boundary cornerback. If you have they drafted him as a second rounder, and they might not. They might not, at least you still need to bring someone in, but at least you don't have to go and find like a surefire Kendall Fuller replacement, like slide in as a starter. It could be like lower spending to create some competition and then see what you got. I think they're still high on Cam Smith. It's just the injuries set him back a little bit last year, along with maybe development of also Storm Duck is in there as a young cornerback. So maybe if there's some competition created among there, you don't have to really pay up for the highest priced corners because you already have Jalen Ramsey there. If you bring back Cater Kohu, then you're solid at that versatile nickel / boundary corner, and then you don't have to pay up big for the Kendall Fuller replacement if maybe one of those guys can develop as well, which this coaching staff is big on development. So I don't think they're giving up on those guys yet.
Let me throw out a name at cornerback, Eli Apple. Not as a starter. Settle down. Not as a starter, but as training camp fodder. You get Tyreek's approval, and hey, just as training camp fodder to look. If Cam Smith doesn't perform, or if Storm, I'm okay. I would make the phone call. I would make the call. I would make the call. Right.
But I'm not even looking at anyone. I'm just. But
I I know.
You believe
I know.
that?
It's a WTF.
Canceled? Are you trying to cancel?
Right.
You're bringing that into these YouTube airwaves?
Sorry, WTF. I know. All right, let me say this. Chris.
On your behind, let me tell
Uh,
you.
I know.
Already are.
I know, right? Exactly. Oh, Raphael Courtright brings up Ethan Bonner. Yeah, that's true. By the way, Mark Heavy says, I swear, David, I'll be on time from now on. But seriously, thanks for the show. So there you go. You're impacting lives.
We can't find you the way Mike McDaniel finds his players.
you're making Mark Heavy a better person, Furones. That's the thing. You're impacting lives on this show. That's the thing. Yeah. We like to do that.
The way you do one thing should be the way you do all things. Control what you can control.
Look at you. I like it. Dropping knowledge. I love it.
We listen to a lot of football coaches talk. So
yeah, we do. Coach that's right. Chris says this is a Chris Greer team. They'll go into the season with a good to great strength on offense and defense, but with a glaring game-breaking weakness on both sides as well. That's deep. I think Chris is right.
We are on deep dive, so we nothing less.
That's right, exactly. He is supposed to go deep on this show, huh? Go into the season with great strength on offense and defense, but glaring game-breaking weaknesses on both sides as well. And I agree. Like offense, like your speed is your strength, right? But your weakness is your power and your aggression and your physicality. So when we talk about what remains for the Dolphins, and we've mentioned before they need a culture change. We've mentioned before that they need to be more physical and more aggressive. I hope they're keeping those intangibles in mind as well as the tangibles, the speed and the strength, and can he block in the outside zone scheme? I hope mentality and aggression and physicality are also on the radar. I think that was another thing they did fairly well last year, right? Jonnu is aggressive. Calais is aggressive. Aaron Brewer is aggressive. Saran Neal is aggressive. Jordan Poyer used to be if he was, a little bit younger, but the thinking was correct. So hopefully they keep doing that. And I hope that that's something that they see as a need to fill when you talk about things they want to do, things that remains to be done here.
Physicality. Yeah, you want to see them continue to invest in both lines, but let's not forget there are 11 draft picks that this team has available in late April. So, especially after they got one more compensatory pick than expected, you can read up on that. The story I wrote off the NFL's announcement earlier this week. So, but I could see a lot of that happening in the draft. Because on the defensive line, they also need an infusion of young talent, not just go bring in the bodies in free agency, which we saw last year. Hey, we're playing up Jonathan Harris signing and Neville Gallimore and Pierre Tart. Right, and then you don't see these guys at all come the season. Now, Pierre Tart was actually pretty good for it was the Chargers that he went to, right? And we plays in training camp, so it was a little bit surprising to see him cut. But I guess he was freelancing some, and he wasn't really fitting into what the Dolphins were trying to do. But I think Anthony Weaver can go with rotating a lot of bodies, and he's a good developer there too. So, like Deshaun Hand really took a big step last year, so you really saw it come to fruition with him. So if you could bring him back, and then if you could just bring in some young talent, I think a lot of those draft picks, if you go heavy into the trenches, you can solidify a lot of what you need there.
Q Simmons, I don't know if I should bring this up at the end of the show. I will. Q Simmons, welcome to the show. Q Simmons says, why are the coach and GM on the hot seat after 2 consecutive playoffs, which the team started fast and ended badly, then one season full on injuries and ended strongly? You say the Dolphins never beat good teams. Do you believe the Dolphins win if they play at home because they play most of them on the road? I'll say this. I had a tweet that, I said that this is arguably the most disappointing era in Dolphins history. The Dolphins under Mike McDaniel are 28-25, 0-2 in the playoffs, 4-16 against playoff teams, 7-12 in December and January games. So that's why the coach and GM are on the hot seat, is because you spent all these resources. You spent first round picks on Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb. You paid a lot of money to Tua and Tyreek and Waddle and Teron, and for you not to even have a playoff victory, that's pretty disappointing. So to me, that's why they would be on the hot seat. I do think that that they do need to win a playoff game this year. You can't go 9-8 and shucks, we barely missed. I think you do need to win a playoff game, but to me, that's why they would be on the hot seat. That's why I say it's been a disappointing era, arguably the most disappointing, not definitely the most disappointing, but because of expectations, I know. Argue very. I've heard a lot from a lot of people, private texts, and I've been flooded. But that's my thing on that, Hugh Simmons.
Oh God. Okay, so you're not saying definitely. You're saying arguably.
Go back and look at the tweet. I know it's a week to play. It's a week out, isn't it?
Which is what we're doing right now. We're arguing. So I think you're right. Yeah, it's very arguable.
That's right.
We're doing it right now. I mean, well, I will say this. Obviously, you got to be on the hot seat now, and that's why you come out with a statement. If you're owner Stephen Ross, at an hour after the season concluded, because there's a lot of the talk around, are they going to be back? And that's why the question was asked Mike McDaniel post-game podium at MetLife Stadium after that Week 18 game, which was the ultimate game of the season after the penultimate game.
Of course.
That's why the question is being asked to him there about both his status and Chris Greer.
Right.
That's why Stephen Ross to get out in front of it and answer it, because he knows it's there. Yeah. Goes out and says that he's bringing them back, because that statement needed to be made, because there was a lot of that hot seat talk already. And so now definitely it's a hot seat season, because part of that statement also was that does not mean that we are accepting these results.
Right.
It's the way this past season went, with how much has been invested in this roster, the talent level that's on this team, which is the most that I think I've seen in my football viewing life. As someone who has been in Miami my whole life, this is the most talented roster that I've seen. I mean, it's arguable like the early 2000s when it's a little bit after Dan Marino and they had those defense. But you brought in Ricky Williams, but then you still had Jay Fiedler at quarterback. I mean, it's arguable with that. But we needed a better quarterback with those teams and some more offensive weapons to go with it. But as far as just like all the key positions, having top tier talent, spending big, having the greatest expectations that there have been in a long time in this franchise's history, it's these years right now. And it's very disappointing that this Miami fan base has not yet had a playoff win, and in fact is going on a quarter century, 25 years, without being able to celebrate a playoff win. And 8-9, 9-8, these are some records that were being hit under Brian Flores with much, much, much less talent on the roster. That's the other thing I'll say, is that yes, you got into the playoffs at 9-8, as opposed to 2020, you missed the playoffs at 10-6. Okay, the standings worked a little bit better in your favor, so you made that playoff appearance. But it's been disappointing with how much has been invested, the talent you have on this roster, to not be able to take the step to be prepared at the end of the season and go and win a playoff game. It certainly has been what should be the expectation at this point. In this run, since the franchise went into that rebuild starting with 2019, you should be at that level now, and then we still haven't seen it. That's why.
Since the Tennessee game last year when they were 9-3, since then they're 10-13. That's unacceptable. So anyway, we will end this show on a good note though, because I do like what they've done in free agency. And as Scotty Joe 22 says, they did get KJ Britt. As you wrote earlier today, the linebacker from Tampa Bay, as Anthony Walker Jr. goes to Tampa Bay. KJ Britt comes here, I like what they've done. I like what the Dolphins have done. Once again, it's mostly been second tier free agents, but I do think that if this is like last year, they're going to get good value for the dollar. I just hope they bring in the attitude guys again, like they did last year. Jordan Brooks, he's got that attitude. He's a dog. Jonnu Smith, Aaron Brewer. That's really kind of my bigger concern right now. Yeah, yeah. So I like, James Daniel. I'm not expecting any of these guys to go to the Pro Bowl. Be a good pro, bring a good attitude to work, and be a dog. Do your job. That will be good enough. Let Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Ramsey and Zach Sealer do the heavy lifting. You do your job. I think that Chris Greer is on track to filling the holes in that fashion. I kind of like what I've seen so far.
Hey, being a dog, isn't that what Tyreek Hill said on his street? The Dolphins need more dogs. The Dolphins need more dogs. Well, also, you should be a dog as well.
Yeah.
Be the dog that doesn't quit on his team in week 18 and be the dog that is also a valued leader to your teammates as well. And then, everyone, then you can have a real team of dogs is once, the top dog is also being a dog for everyone.
There you go. You dropped knowledge today. I like this, man. You dropped knowledge today. All right, folks. We will be back with you probably next week. Check social media for the day. We don't exactly know what day. We will try to keep it at Tuesday noon. Mark Heavy will be on time if we do that, right? All right, to all of y'all out there, check back in with us. We will see you at some point next week. Appreciate it.